Welcome to Just Talking About Jesus. I'm Jan Johnson, a seasoned believer who loves relationships and, just talking about Jesus.
The biggest impression on you is not what's there, but what's not there. I mean, when you arrive, and like I said, you pass through the forgiveness stage, and the closer you got to heaven, the more relaxed you felt because you'd left sin behind. And at the very last, the devil broke away, and you knew then that your soul was completely free.
Calvin Cassady is a retired educator with a career that spanned 40 years teaching middle school through college-age students. He served as director of Christian education at the local Episcopal Church for 15 years, and he now serves on the tribal council for the Seneca-Cayuga Nation, a federally recognized Indian tribe in northeast Oklahoma. He enjoys outdoor activities and quality family time. He has 2 daughters and 4 grandsons. He lives with his wife, Vicki, in Carl Junction, Missouri. Are you curious about heaven? Calvin had the rare opportunity to go there after a car accident. Let's listen to his story and what he experienced and how that affected his life. Well, I have an amazing guest today. Calvin Cassady, welcome to Just Talking About Jesus.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Tell me a little bit about yourself and maybe your testimony and things you'd like us to know.
Well, to begin with, I'm a career educator, a retired career educator, I guess you'd say. I was in a public school, private school, a university for about 40 years. I also did church work and worked with youth as kind of a youth minister for 11 years at our local Episcopal church. I worked for an Indian tribe, which was quite challenging for 8 years. And right now, I'm just, like I said, being retired.
Yeah, that's good. What were some of the challenges working with the Indian tribe?
Well, when you approach life with a Christian direction, and they have different way, they profess to have a different types of spirituality, and I was aware of that, uh, but I was also aware that just by common knowledge, probably 80% of the members that I dealt with were Christians, and they did go to church. But they would like to pull that card out every now and then. If they didn't agree with you, they'd say, "Well, you believe in God, so what you think doesn't matter." So that would happen. But we worked with it, and I can't say that that it was a conversion experience for everybody, but it was for some of the people that I worked closely with. It truly was. I mean, we plunged into some things that were difficult, and we came out on the right side of things. But I think you gotta, it was through prayer and working in that direction that it worked out. And I think maybe for some of those people, that was the first proof they had that there was something besides, we used to talk about, like dancing around the fire and doing the things that they did, which I respected and I totally understand it. And I studied it. And the truthfulness of it is that there's not that much difference between what they believe and what we as Christians believe. It's just it's just a different mindset. Mm-hmm. And when people want to be alike, it's pretty easy. But when people don't want to be, sometimes it's not so easy. I guess that's the direction that I said it was difficult. It's probably the most difficult challenge that I've had. If I want to think of something that maybe I didn't do well, it would be that. But then my wife and people that I work with say, but you did. You got to remember that you got to count. You got to look at the people whose lives you did change, and not worry so much about the ones that you couldn't, because nobody's perfect, and you never really know what effect you might have had on some people too. So to be there for them when they need you, whether they like you or not. And down the road, you know, maybe, you know, we all come out ahead. So, but that was challenging, let's just say.
It's just whether it would be with a Native American population or others. I mean, just in general, right? People have their own ideas about things that are not saved or, walking the walk. And that's the way it is. Even with Paul, look at how Paul encountered those who
Oh, yeah.
had their own beliefs and whatever. And he's kind of seeing the things that are similar and then starting
Yeah.
there. Right?
That's, well, like you said, that's the way it is with everything. But with people you're closer with, people you know, like your church community, you feel comfortable sharing, you know, just about anything. And you know, whether they agree with you or not, they're not going to be mean to you. They're going to, you know, they're going to listen and politely. And once again, you don't know whether it's going to matter or not. But I found more times than not it has mattered, because in today's world, whether people admit it or not, they need somebody to care. They need to feel like they're in a community of caring people, whether that be their family, their church, their community. And then, if you can have any kind of influence on those things, then you're making great progress. Once you leave your community, then, it's it becomes a God thing, man. I mean, it always is, but
Yeah, right, right.
you do what you can do with those around you, and you're hoping that other people in other communities are doing the same thing. But the worst thing you can do is do nothing and
Right.
then complain.
Right, right, right. And everybody you encounter, I think just even having your mindset on God and your opportunities of what he's going to drop in your mouth to say to somebody at the time and,
Oh, I love that,
you know.
because that's happened to me many, many times. I mean, I've taken off on a mission, jumped in my car and headed off somewhere and ended up on somebody's front porch and thought, what am I doing here? And what am I going to say? And the door opens and you just know. It just happens. The words just come out of your mouth. Not that you hadn't thought about it.
Right.
It wasn't going around in your brain. It's just that at that instant, you didn't know for sure what you were going to do. And I love it when you said that, because that happens a lot.
Yeah.
People don't believe it until it happens to them. But a lot of times, if you push and put yourself in those kind of unknown situations, it's going to happen.
Right. Right.
If you don't and live the comfortable life, you may never understand it. But if you get involved with any organization that right now closely involved in church work, we just hired a new priest, and what an ordeal that was. And we're so fortunate that the process only took like 3 months, because then sometimes I'm an Episcopalian and we have we're not our rectors are not assigned. They interview, and with the diocese, they interview with the church committee and the vestry, and I am a member of the vestry, and so it's an exciting time. But it was scary because when you start out on that, we've had searches, and they said there have been searches that have lasted 5 years, and just being without our own for 3 months felt like we were lost in the wilderness. I mean,
Yeah, stranded a little bit.
a
Yeah.
true that was a true faith experience. But I was so proud of our folks, because they were up to it. They stuck with the program, and now we have, in just a few weeks, we'll have our own church leader back. And but that's a process for those people that went through it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a faith experience. That's saying we went from unknown to known, and all we really had was our faith. And it's hard to explain to people how God works unless they see it.
Yeah.
And when they see it, and it's kind of almost undeniable, then it's like, you know, it's the argument, if there ever was one, is over. And it's like, uh, I knew all the time it was going to be okay.
That's the beauty of the Holy Spirit, isn't it?
Truly it is.
It truly is. What kind of experience did you have when you were doing the youth, working with youth?
Pretty good. My experience through the book was, I mean, my motivation was my near death experience. And with youth, that played a lot better than it does with some adults who have preconceived notions that are never going to go away. They're always going to think that, something's not right with you. But with young people, and again, uh, they are so much looking for some guidance, maybe outside the home. And that's not saying that they're not getting that's saying they're not coming from a good family. That's just saying that when they get to be in junior high and high school, they're looking for something else. And, to be honest, to step out into that world is almost a bold step. That's something that God needs to follow you with, because it can be very, very trying. And a lot of people just have no luck at all. But in my situation, and I can say this, I taught Sunday school and I taught all kinds of school. I taught, I even substituted in kindergarten a few times, but that was an experience. But in most of the classroom assignments that I had every year for the time that I was in there, I always talked about my experience. Was that was that chancy? Yes, it was. But I never had an administrator or another teacher challenge me. I never had a parent challenge it, which was kind of interesting because, and I'm not saying you could do that today, but I'm saying that the right kind of person probably could, because, like I said, the world's the way it is, and everybody's looking for somebody to believe in, for somebody to care with them. And sometimes they're really, really lost. I mean, and maybe it's their fault, maybe it's not. Maybe it's medical, maybe it's family, maybe it's drugs. I mean, just everywhere you turn, there's a possibility. And from when I started teaching, and that's been it's been 50 years since I started teaching. Things are so much different.
Very.
And once again, your trust, developing trust systems with kids, with families, with communities were so much easier then, because there was just so much, or so little, so much less confusion, trying to have to decipher what's right and wrong. Things were clearer then, and parents weren't afraid to say, that's wrong. And if your teacher told you that's wrong, then it's wrong. And now, you know, sometimes
And everything.
sometimes parents don't know what their kids are doing, so they don't know if it's right or wrong or not. And if they tried to explain it in some situations, it wouldn't matter, because there's no they're getting their information, they're getting their caring, they're getting their trust from somebody else. And a lot of times we know it's not from people that are going to make their lives better, but they're so starved for that feeling of belonging and security that they'll take it wherever they can get it. And that was a problem 50 years ago, but right now it's a huge problem, because there seems to be more people that want to take than they want to give. And it sounded pretty good, didn't it? I'm kind of in one of those modes now. I'm letting somebody talking for me, but uh, the whole thing, is from where I come. I'm going to tell you this. Today's my birthday, and you do a lot of reflecting on that day as to what your life means and all this. And I was just thinking, the experience, which we haven't talked about very much, whenever I, had the near death experience, uh, situation with God and heaven and all that, was truly amazing. And I didn't do it near justice in the book. because when you're sitting down and you're writing it, it all sounds pretty. I'm pretty special, and that's not what I wanted it to sound like at all.
Yeah.
But but I want people to understand that just because it happened to me doesn't mean I'm better than you. It just means that I'm here to care for you. I'm here to help you. I'm here to, to reinforce your feelings of doubt or your lack of faith, things like that. And that experience gave me that power to go to invest my time in other people's lives and in other people's families. And then once again, you just get back to, well, how did I end up here?
Yeah. So
But
tell us,
things,
you were in a car accident. Tell us about
yeah.
what happened, and
Okay.
then the
Three teenagers out well, actually, we had a day off from school and we should have been studying for finals, but that was the design of the day off. But we were out on just a day out, a day out and off. And we got in a bad car wreck. Everybody was hurt, but I was critically hurt. And in the time that it took, well, as a result of that accident, and I like to say it was almost a Hollywood accident because there was a fire and an explosion, and everybody that walked away should have been thankful. Well, I was drug away by a couple of gentlemen that I called angels because that's the way I perceived it at the time. If it hadn't been for them, I would have burned up, and so would and I don't know if my friends would have or not. They were fairly mobile and could get away, but I was not, and I needed help. But from that experience with those angels to an experience where you pass through, and I like to say that this is a judgment stage, or where you pass through, and they simplify that by saying your life flashes before you. Well, yeah, it does. But what makes the biggest impression on you is not what's there, but what's not there. I mean, when you arrive, and like I said, you pass through the forgiveness stage, and the closer you got to heaven, the more relaxed you felt because you'd left sin behind. And at the very last, the devil broke away, and you knew then that your soul was completely free. And then that's when heaven just kind of exploded in front of me. And I'm not, and I tell everybody, it wasn't the golden streets. It wasn't like what you think. I like to think maybe it was the receiving area. And I say that in all honesty because it was just a nice, peaceful, pastoral kind of a scene. God and I communicated with each other. I did not see him, but I heard him. I felt him. And, and it was, of course, by the time that happened, I knew what was going on. I just didn't know what was going to happen afterward. And, I was just thinking last night, in Christian life today, being born again or Christian rebirth and all that stuff is, is an important thing. But I don't think, I'm not sure that I look at being reborn as they look at being reborn, because when you die and then you go back, that was a pretty rough trip back because you saw all the stuff that you said goodbye to and was thankful to leave behind, like poverty and war and abuse and all that stuff. But it didn't seem like the trip back was so fast, and you just that stuff just kind of sunk back in, and you realized that the devil was a part of your life again, and that sin was something that you were going to have to fight on a daily basis, and it made you feel like what you needed to do was so important. That, but that's was that's what I wrote the book for. But then the rest of it, I like to call living with Jesus, because once you can get people's attention, you can show them how, Jesus is with them, and not in just the big miracle things, but just in the things that I'm having trouble and I need somebody to talk to, and I can offer you a prayer, and, and the solution happens. I'm not sure why or how, but the right person comes to me, or 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 I get redirected. And I find that a lot of times in my own personal life. Sometimes I think I know where I'm going. And then when you just keep bashing against the wall, you think maybe I need a little redirection. Maybe I need to, what are the things in your car say now, we're rerouting or something. But if you're doing something over and over and nothing's changing, then you've got to figure that I've done something wrong, or things I would feel this way. And sometimes you just have to say, well, I guess I was wrong all along. I should have gone this way instead of that way. And, but that's, again, it's a part of faith. And that's a part when you visit with people. And, it's funny. And I say this too, not to say I'm better than you or anything else, because I think everybody has the same ability. But once you're focused on need, it just seems like people that need help, are just there. And they may just blend in with everybody else, but it just seems like, I migrate towards them or they migrate towards me. And so, but I'm just saying, I think anybody that cared, and that's my job, is to make them care, make them see that Jesus is a part of them. I had a situation at church where I fell and cracked my head and bled all over everything. And of course, it was one of those things that was very close to being a disaster, but it wasn't. And I wrote a little piece about it that said, Jesus was there and he helped me because he was with the lady that helped me find a place to sit. And he was with me, or he was with the person that took their t-shirt off and wrapped my head to keep it from bleeding all over everything. Jesus was with the man that helped us to the car. And, and Jesus was with the hospital people. And, I published that on Facebook and the church site. And so many people said, we really, really appreciate that. We really didn't think about it in that terms, but it was them that Jesus was a part of.
Yeah.
And without thinking, it just happened. And I thought that was pretty cool. Might have been the second coolest thing that's happened to me, aside from the big event that one of the ladies I interviewed with, that's what she liked to refer to the car crash, was the big event.
Yeah. 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 And you do everything pre-big event and post-big event.
Right, right.
Were you married at the time of the accident?
No, but my wife and I became very, very close after the accident. I mean, she was at the hospital. She was there with me through the recovery. Most people that watched that relationship develop say that it was a thing that was going to be. And we're still together. We still work with people together. I like to say I work I I work with God through God's word. She works with people through God's creation, because she spends lots and lots of time working with young people and at local nature center, environmental center, introducing different things to kids. And I think together we're very complementary in working through God's words.
Yeah. How did she how did she react to your revelation of your spiritual, right? I mean, finding the reality of the spiritual realm.
But except, accepting, but the longer we're together, the stronger that acceptance becomes, the more that, she's absolutely sure. Another thing that happened that, you know, many things are happening. Another thing that I talked about in the book was when my mother died, and she died in a car crash, and it was really sad. But the thing about it was, people at the hospital said, "Well, she'll be all right. You were all right. You were in critical condition. You weren't, you were given, so many hours to think that it'll be fine." And I mean, that was nice that they understood that part of it, but I was just so disturbed about the whole thing that I just had to walk out of the room. And I went down to the chapel to pray. While I was there, God spoke to me and he said, that your mom was a great person and that she was a great servant, but her work on this earth is finished. And now your job is to take care of those people up there in that room and help them understand what's going on. And that really stuck with me for lots of reasons because, that's one of those things when death is upon you, you have to really, really think hard. I mean, kids are killed in car wrecks, adults are killed in car wrecks, people die of cancer, people die of all kinds of reasons, and their loved ones cling to them very tightly, very closely. But my feelings, the way I was approached with in the chapel was that your job is to let go, is to make people understand that this is a natural thing, and it's all right to be sad, and it's all right to be grieving, but you've got to understand that your mom has made a step of progress to something that you understand, but the people that you're talking to upstairs probably have no concept of. So it seemed like forever, but it was probably less than 30 minutes because it was less than 30 minutes that we lost her. But I did the best I could. And I think, I mean, people were a little bit adamant about my behavior for a little while, but eventually they all accepted it as
Yeah.
maybe I didn't know what was going on. But that's affected everything that's happened since.
Having had that experience, does it change the way you feel or see when somebody as a Christian dies and where they're going, what's going to happen?
Oh man, I'm excited, but you can't go to a funeral and be excited. People look at you funny. But I never go. I never do go to a funeral or memorial service where I don't leave feeling better than I was when I was there. But I also feel like there's so much sadness in this room.
Oh, of course.
They just don't understand that what's ahead is nothing that you could even you would never want to deprive anybody of that if you really think about it. So in that regard, sometimes when you visit with people afterwards, you kind of work it to that direction. You work about if you've got your memories and you celebrate, you don't be sad, you celebrate instead. Whenever I send out a Facebook message after somebody passes, I try to use that word, celebrate their life, celebrate their memories, and try to draw away from this, remembering the tragedy that brought it all to an end in your mind. But it really is. It's really, really hard because I've got an aunt that's 98 years old. She's in a nursing home, and we're never sure that. I mean, I haven't seen her in several years, but you're never sure. Family's never sure if she's tuned in or she's not tuned in. Some days she's good, some days are bad. But when somebody gets to that situation, and I truly, really, truly feel about this, is what happens in her life, as it is in everybody's life, every day of everybody's life, is what happens now is between her and God. And once she's decided And I use this because it helped me with my father. My father passed away, and he worked really, really hard. He was a very careful man. He got sick and he didn't know what to do. I mean, he freaked, he freaked out, and that just made things worse. And he was old, and things started to fail, and he was just real confused about everything. But he was gone. I say he was gone, and then he was back. He had his first night in the hospital was very, very difficult. And doctor said, there were several times that we could have lost him. But I told you that I wouldn't let that happen. And after that, he kind of rebounded. He spent about 5 months in a nursing home. Was I was amazed. I mean, I was really, really proud of him. But when he did die, my line is that he fought the hard fight, but he just got a better offer and he couldn't turn it down. And I've used that with some people, and it's been effective because it's like, you know, at that stage in their life, it's not your call to make. They are in control and are always in control because you know, and God's with you every minute. But at that particular time, you know, you just got to understand that they love you. The people that have always loved you are never going to not love you, and they're not going to leave you because they don't love you. It's just, if
Yeah.
you knew what I knew, you wouldn't be you wouldn't be crying. You'd be excited.
Yeah.
And, you know, and so that's, yeah, I mean, but that's just another thing that's changed and has changed me forever. And, you know, the people that I grew up with are old too. And, we had a large high school, but it seems like every other week there's somebody in our high school that's passed away.
Yeah.
And at 70, today I turned 73. That's, we know that's to be expected, but it's still hard.
Yeah.
And that's why I wished I could be more, I wish I could talk to people like I've talked to you today. Uh, because
Probably
there's,
be talking to a lot of people. Who knows who
yeah,
listen to
yeah,
this,
that's right. Well,
Yeah.
I was just thinking, I bet I've done 100 podcasts since COVID. I mean, I did my own during COVID called Intermission, and I imagine I know I did at least 60. And the gist of that was, what do we do between times?
Yeah.
When you go to a play, the intermission is between the first half and the second half. And I really enjoyed that, of course, but you didn't have anything else to do. So,
Yeah, right. So we're almost out of time. I want you to tell us where listeners could reach you and find your book.
okay, I do have a website, and it's very easy. It's Calvin Cassady or calvincassady.com. It's as simple as that. And books available on Amazon, at Books a Million, anywhere
The title,
go
please.
ahead. Title of the book is Bridging the Gap, A Spiritual Journey to Heaven and Back.
Okay.
And most everything about me you can find on the website. And there's a place there you can leave comments, which would be greatly appreciated. It's a delightful website. It's got a lot of my programs and some press releases and things like that. But that'd be the best way to find out more about me.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, Calvin, thank you. This has really been a delight. I'm kind of jealous of you to have had that experience and can't wait till the day. But
Well,
meanwhile, while we're on Earth, we
that's why I say I wish I could talk to people like I can talk to you, because it has hopefully it has that effect on other people. And I think at the age I am now, and I needed to challenge myself to get out more. Maybe that's the direction I need to go with this is to go out and do some speaking
yeah,
and let God help me some more.
exactly. Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has really been a joy, and I'm sure the listeners are going to really appreciate your story.
Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Okay. I think what impressed me the most about Calvin's story was how his perspective changed after his heavenly experience. Now he sees things through a different lens. It must have been somewhat how Jesus felt, trying to explain things to the disciples that they just didn't get because they hadn't experienced heaven yet. That's really where our faith comes in, right? We must believe that Jesus said in the Bible and have faith that what he said is true. And waiting for us there on the other side is going to be something so magnificent, so grand, so entirely different than we ever imagined. I, for one, can't wait. My recommended book is Bridging the Gap, A Spiritual Journey to Heaven and Back. A link for that is in the show notes. And I would recommend this podcast, Made for This, with Jenny Allen. Jenny Allen is a 2 times New York Times best-selling author of Find Your People and Get Out of Your Head. She's also the founder and visionary of If Gathering. She's a passionate leader following God's call on her life to catalyze a generation to live what they believe. Jenny has a master's in biblical studies with Dallas Theological Seminary and lives in Dallas, Texas with her husband, Zach, and their 4 children. I really enjoy this podcast because she is passionate about what she believes, and I think she is true to the word. So give it a try. I'll put that link in the show notes as well. Be sure and share this episode if it was something that was meaningful to you and you think someone else would enjoy it. And I'll leave you with these scriptures. Philippians 3:20. But our citizenship is in heaven, and we eagerly await a Savior from there, the Lord Jesus Christ. And 2 Corinthians 5:1. For we know that if the earthly tent we live in is destroyed, we have a building from God, an eternal house in heaven, not built by human hands. Let me know your thoughts by texting to the link at the top of the show notes, and I look forward to joining you again next time when we'll hear from Dr. Lisa Dorsey, who has a profound passion for history and faith. Blessings, my friend.